this many times where if you don't spend the time to align roles, whether it's a new leader going into the next role, or just looking at what you have on your team and aligning them to people's energy giving strengths, we call them God-given gifts and talents or geniuses. That also is a huge stumbling block, because you can work super hard and grit and determination, and you can do that for a certain amount of time, but it's not sustainable if you're not taking the time to look at your team and to put people into positions like on the baseball field, put people in positions where they're going to be successful. If you put Buster Posey in center field, he's not going to be as good. He's super talented. He's still going to try, but you put him at catcher, or maybe when he was at shortstop in college, and it's a better fit. Just like if you put a center fielder behind the plate at catcher, that's not going to work out very well, right? And so same goes for a business. Is like, are we aligning roles to people's strengths where they are put in a position to thrive? And that's what creates the momentum for those leaders who are taking over. It's like, hey, let's imagine, like, as a sage advisor, what's your ideal thing that can support the business, but not be stressful for you? And what's the role for these leaders that plays to their strengths? So you have a cohesive and dynamic leadership team, and that creates, everybody gets a win-win, and we all want win-wins, right?
Absolutely. Now let's dive into a little bit more. When you say sage advisor, and we touched on this briefly earlier, I think many business owners, when they've been in business for so long and they've built up, this business through their, hard work and sweat and blood and tears, right? It becomes very hard to separate your identity from that business. And one of the first things I think, business owners really need to think about, especially when thinking about this, big transition, is, what does your ideal future look like? Where's where are you retiring? Who you're spending time with? Are there causes that are important to you that you can participate in? Like, where I see people struggle with that transition the most is when people don't have something that they're retiring to. And it's like, no, you can't just, call it a day in your business and just go home and watch TV all day. I mean, that might be very attractive for a week or two, but believe me, you're not going to be happy after a while. So, you brought up sage advisors. Like, tell me a little bit more about what you've seen business owners do in terms of that specific role.
Yeah, I've put a lot of hours in of thinking about this, because it's such an important concept in time in people's lives. So I call it like, and I don't know if I've coined this. There's probably someone who has. So if they have, I apologize. But it's a purpose vacuum, and that's really what we're experiencing with these people. And they retire and they have this purpose vacuum, and then they end up wanting to do a second career, or they go back to work because they don't know what to do themselves, because all of their purpose and their identity is wrapped up into the business, as you said. And so what it really is, there's two things here that are most important for somebody retiring, because I've talked to many of these types of people. Is number one, it's that they find, like you said, something of purpose. If they were running their business and that was their whole life, well, they're in trouble. They better find, either faith practices or causes, something beyond just playing golf and watching TV that's going to give them nourishment and purpose. So that's number one of the purpose side. The other side is what they're really craving. And the people I've seen, like a John Maxwell, for example, who is still working at like 78 or however old he is, because he's living in his God-given gifts and talents. Like, you don't have to retire. You could just keep working till you're 80 if you get nourishment and you're getting fulfillment and energy from the work you do. He looks younger because he's living in his gifts most of the time, right? And so I call a sage advisor in terms of, like, everyone would have a different role of what sage advisor is. One of my owners, his sage advisor role is really, he's in the shop and he gets to kind of like tinker around and manage the shop. He's not involved in leadership anymore because that's not really where he gets energy. He loves just like problem solving and just kind of staying active and busy. So that's
Yeah.
his sage advisor role, right? I have another one where his sage advisor, he's more of an inventor. So ideas and evaluating situations, and he's high on what's called enablement. So he loves being in groups and connecting with people and just building relationships and serving. And so his sage advisor role is going to be more like supporting his son who's building the business, and also being out with other business owners and just building relationships, just those high value relationships. And he does that all day, or does that most of the time. He's as happy as you can be, and it's high value for the company.
Yes.
So if you can transition in that way, you don't necessarily have to leave the business, but part time, doing only the things that you love and that provides maximum value for the company. That to me is a dream retirement, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
then if you do sell the business completely, then you really do need to find maybe a part-time, in volunteer role with an organization, but leveraging your gifts. Not just saying, "Hey, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it," because you will not last. It
Yes.
has to be intentional and purpose-filled. It's got to be both.
Absolutely. No, I think that that is so spot on, and in so many respects. And to add to this, I think a place and a point where a lot of business owners can kind of struggle is they don't know what they need to have in their retirement accounts to be financially secure. And so when you're able to, with certainty, be able to know that, hey, yes, I have what I need, right? I've clearly defined what passions or hobbies or activities or volunteering work I'm going to do in my retirement, and I kind of have an idea what I want to do in terms of like continue to be involved in the business, but not necessarily have to rely on that income. Like once you go through that process, like then you can walk away with like knowing like, okay, I need X amount of dollars in order to be able to exit the business. And I've seen where like business owners haven't gone through that personal inventory, I would say, and so from that standpoint they're a little bit stressed out because they feel like they need more and that they're not going to have enough in retirement, and so they just keep working and keep doing the same thing, and it just like prolongs this whole process. So um I think going through that whole exercise like holistically as an individual is just incredibly constructive and incredibly important, and allows these business owners to arrive at that number and be able to execute with confidence and intentionality.